चमन तुझ पे दिल कुर्बान, तू ही मेरी आरज़ू, तू ही मेरी आबरू, तू ही मेरी जान। है मेरे प्यारे वतन, है मेरे बिछड़े चमन, तुझ पे दिल कुर्बान। लिरिक्स भूल जाता हूँ। तेरे दामन से जो आए हवाओं को सलाम, चूम लूं मैं उस जुबां को जिस पे आए तेरा नाम। सबसे प्यारी सुबह तेरी, सबसे रंगी तेरी शाम, तुझ पे दिल कुर्बान। तू ही मेरी आरज़ू, तू ही मेरी आबरू, तू ही मेरी जान। माँ का दिल बन के कभी सीने से लग जाता है तू, और कभी नन्ही सी बेटी बन के याद आता है तू। जितना याद आता है मुझको, उतना तड़पाता है तू, तुझ पे दिल कुर्बान। तू ही मेरी आरज़ू, तू ही मेरी आबरू, तू ही मेरी जान। है मेरे प्यारे वतन, है मेरे बिछड़े चमन, तुझ पे दिल कुर्बान। थैंक यू कॉमरेड।
गुड मॉर्निंग एवरीबॉडी। मैं भी एक छोटा सा सॉन्ग प्रेजेंट कर रही हूँ। हिंद देश के निवासी सभी जन एक हैं, रंग रूप वेश भाषा चाहे अनेक हैं। हिंद देश के निवासी सभी जन एक हैं, रंग रूप वेश भाषा चाहे अनेक हैं। बेला गुलाब जूही चंपा चमेली, बेला गुलाब जूही चंपा चमेली, प्यारे प्यारे फूल गूंथे माला में एक हैं। प्यारे प्यारे फूल गूंथे माला में एक हैं। हिंद देश के निवासी सभी जन एक हैं, रंग रूप वेश भाषा चाहे अनेक हैं। कोयल की कूक न्यारी, पपीहे की ठेर प्यारी, कोयल की कूक न्यारी, पपीहे की ठेर प्यारी, गा रही तराना बुलबुल, राग मगर एक है। गा रही तराना बुलबुल, राग मगर एक है। हिंद देश के निवासी सभी जन एक हैं, रंग रूप वेश भाषा चाहे अनेक हैं। गंगा यमुना ब्रह्मपुत्र कृष्णा कावेरी, गंगा यमुना ब्रह्मपुत्र कृष्णा कावेरी जाके मिल गई सागर में, हुई सब एक है। धर्म है अनेक, जीवन सार वही है। पंथ है निराले, सबकी मंजिल तो एक है। हिंद देश के निवासी सभी जन एक हैं। रंग रूप वेश भाषा चाहे अनेक हैं, चाहे अनेक हैं।
Thank you, Comrade Anuradha, for the beautiful song that you rendered here. So, comrades, we will start this session today. Diversity, Federalism, and the Republic. Reflections on the present condition of India. Now, I would request Comrade Amanullah Khan, the former president of AIA and the editor of Insurance Worker, to please preside over this session. Comrade Amanullah Khan. Now, on behalf of all of you comrades, I would request Professor G.N. Devi, the speaker for today's session, to please come onto the dais. Comrade V. Ramesh, President AIA, Comrade K. Venugopal, our senior leader, he is requested to please come onto the stage.
If somebody is outside, ask them to come in. We will start this session. Your mobile phones on switch off mode or silent mode. Comrades, we are extremely fortunate that we have Professor G.N. Devi with us today. I don't think that he needs any introduction. His work is known to all of us. And in fact, in the Insurance Worker, a number of his articles have been reproduced by us. Comrade Devi is a prominent face today in our country who is fighting for democracy, secularism, and federalism. Professor Devi, he left his teaching job as a professor of English to work among the tribals and Adivasis. And thereafter, he also took up a project which is a fabulous and fantastic project. He gave life to a movement called as People's Linguistic Survey of India, through which he wanted to enumerate the living languages in India. We do not know how many living languages in India are, but 50 volumes have been brought by him to say that how many languages exist in India and which speaks of the diversity. He is a prolific writer, written about 90 and odd books on various topics of importance, and at present he has mobilized prominent sections of the Indian intellectuals to defend democracy, constitution, and diversity in our country. And in 2015, he returned his award, Sahitya Academy Award, as a protest against what is happening in this country. So we are extremely fortunate that we have Comrade Devi with us. His latest book, Mahabharata, the epic and the nation, is a wonderful book, and I would like all of you to read that book. It has been translated in various languages. Recently, we released that book after translation in Kannada just 1 month back. And that book has been translated into various languages, which is easily available. I would like all of you to purchase that book and read it. And that gives quite a lot of insight, not just about the epic, about the events and how that can be related to the contemporary India. We requested him to come and present his views in this seminar that we organize. And we thought that on the issue of federalism, on the issue of diversity, there could be nobody better than Professor Devi to deal with that subject. Despite various issues, yesterday he was at Pune for another program. From Pune he has come here, from here he has to go to Bangalore. Despite all these commitments, he agreed that he will come and participate in our program. So we are extremely thankful to him for coming here. And I am sure that we will be benefited by his presence and his submissions. The topic that he is going to speak is something very important today. A campaign that is going on is that one nation, one culture. Everything is one nation, one ration card, one ration, one language. It is one nation, one culture. Forgetting the fact that India is a diverse country. The diversity that is existing in India can never be imagined. It is not there anywhere in the world. And in fact, yesterday when Professor Agnihotri was speaking, she said that unless we recognize the differences that exist, respect those differences, India cannot survive as a nation. And today the challenge for the survival of the nation has come when the society is being homogenized, when plurality is being attacked. We must understand that India is a country with multiplicity of religions, multiplicity of languages, multiplicity of cultures. And unless we understand this, and simple thing, if the country has remained united, because not many people gave a chance that a country with 600 princely states, a country with such a lot of diversity can survive. Even the people, the Britishers who left India, they felt that India is going to collapse. It is going to be divided into various parts. It did not happen. And that is the biggest achievement of these 75 years. And if the country has remained united, basically it is because that we recognize the diversity and try to build unity within that diversity. So a very important subject is going to be dealt with today, and I'm sure that is going to benefit all of you and our organization. And I would now request Professor Devi to come and present his views to us. Come, Professor Devi. I am welcoming him on behalf of all.
Comrades, if it is okay and if I have your permission, may I sit here and speak?
Bring that mic out. Another mic
Okay. But if I
Center.
They are worried about camera.
No, they'll move away. Once they set, they'll move.
Sir, is it okay?
it's okay.
गिरिधर थोड़ा वॉल्यूम
కాలేదు.
टू చూడు टू
Awesome.
yes
Good morning, everybody. I open my comments with allusion to two very strange coincidences related to my life. The first is the birth date of your association is the same as my birth date. Which is 1st July. Second, and of a much greater consequence to me and all of us in a way, is the birth year for me is the birth year for the republic that India is, 1950. I therefore think that it is my personal responsibility to wish for this association a great health. Because in wishing you, I am wishing myself. And I also want to wish this republic, we are sahodara, as they say in Sanskrit. I mean, we born of the same time, same spirit, if you like, same material conditions, same historical context, same waves and their admixture. Therefore, in wishing this republic some future, and I use these words with a great sense of responsibility and some agony, wishing this republic some future, I am wishing for myself a human space. With these two very personal allusions to coincidences, let me explain why I said some future for this republic. When the republic was born, there were certain ideas embedded. Justice Nagbonji has already spoken to you at length. And those ideas were not made like plastic is made in a jiffy. Those ideas have in the background a color of blood and sweat of hundreds. Once out of just curiosity, I mean, I am speaking about this blood and sweat, and these are not mere phrases. Out of curiosity, I decided to go to the Indian Council of Historical Research. This is before 2014. Because after 2014, the Indian Council for Historical Research has changed its personality. I looked at the volumes listing names of martyrs. And I was focusing only on those who were imprisoned and taken to Andaman and who died there, not those who sent Mafinama and came back on some seashore like Ratnagiri, or that's a difference. those who gave their lives. I got, and I was looking at only those who went from Bombay Presidency of old time, which is part of Gujarat, part of Karnataka, part of Maharashtra. I found a list of 428 young people arrested at the age of 21, 22, 25. The list pertaining to Andaman covers the names of those people who were taken there from 1859 onwards till independence. Even before the Andaman was made a punitive settlement, even before the cellular jail had come up. In that list, I found names of young men whose profession was barber's profession, Navi, Marathi. Some of you speak Marathi? Navi, Dobi, Brahmins, Parsis, Muslims in large number. The largest segment was Muslims. Any caste you think of was present in the list. The color of the blood and sweat is not blue blood, but red. That is the blood of humans, not of a certain privileged class or privileged caste. The Republic was born, I said, because it has in the background, those ideas founding the Republic have color, and that color is the color of sacrifice that our ancestors made, our forefathers made. I refer to this list of 1850s in relation to Bombay and Andaman. It is not as if others were not taken to Andaman. They were taken to Andaman from Bengal, from Punjab, everywhere. But I was only looking at a small study to see the social composition. These were workers, laborers, fighting for some ideas. Now, what were these ideas in 1850s, I am saying? I'm not talking about 1947. I'm going 100 years before that time. I will narrate two incidents. They are also related to my life, your life, in an indirect way. For my women comrades, I want to mention the first one. A woman called Savitri Phule set up a school in Pune. 1856, she started her work. 1856. The school did not take shape until a few years later. By 1860s, the idea that women must be educated was getting opposed. An idea getting opposed is a good idea. Please remember that the idea had taken birth. Woman must be educated. She has right to education. Was an idea 1850s. We started receiving lot of opposition because that idea, the time of, as they say in English, the time of the idea had come. 1850s. This is for women and those who come from Maharashtra. Those who come from Karnataka, are there any? You are from Karnataka. And let me share this story with you while everybody is overhearing my sharing. There was a boy, 7-year-old. His name was Arlu bin Narayan. Strange name. His name was written down only once in history. It was not written before, it was never written afterwards. I'll tell you when it was written and why it was written. This boy was in Dharwad. He belonged to the Mahar community. You know, it's the community to which Ambedkar also belonged. But Ambedkar came much, much later. Erlu was 7-year-old. He wanted admission to a school run by Christian missionaries, which was set up in Dharwad. The government officer refused to allow the school to admit him because the principal of the school said, if we admit a Mahar boy, then parents of other children will pull their children out of the school. But the principal said, all the same, I'll write a letter to the governor in Bombay. Mount Stuart Elphinstone was perhaps the governor. So letter was sent to the governor. This became a policy issue, not the LIC kind of policy, legislative policy. The letter was sent with the governor's comments to Calcutta, which used to be the capital of India at that time. And from Calcutta, since it was to touch the nature of Indian society, it was sent to England. A reply came back 4 years later, allowing this boy admission. But in the meanwhile, the boy had gone away. Nobody could find where he was. His name was written on that application once. He did not learn how to read or write. He would not have written his name anytime. 70 years later, in Maharashtra, in Bombay, as a government person, Ambedkar was to, this is 1927, 1857 to 70 years later, 7 decades later, young barrister Ambedkar was going through the files. He had to prepare a report on education. He was going through the files of education department. He found a letter pertaining to a Mahar boy. So he went to Dharwad looking for the boy. By then this boy would be 80-year-old or so. He could not trace the family, the child, but Ambedkar decided to build a hostel for such children. Now, you think of these two examples. Savitri Phule fighting for education for women, and this boy, and later Ambedkar, who gave the formula educate, organize, and agitate, fighting for education for scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, marginalized people. This was a new idea that the excluded castes and classes, if you like, and women be given education was an idea that was new with regard to what? A new is new only in relation to something which is not new. If there is an old, then alone there can be a new. So this idea, this idea was new with regard to what? It was new with regard to the Sanatani, Brahminical, Vedic order of the society, which was upholding a certain feudal kingship system, state system, which had decided to exclude women from knowledge and had decided to exclude various castes from knowledge transactions. So what was the new idea? The new idea was to dismantle the old idea. These are symbolic acts. They did not know when Savitri Phule set up the school, she did not know this was a historical step. Nor did Narayan, 7-year-old Narayan, know that what he was doing was making history. History is made of such ideas because these ideas are testing the mantle of the society around such ideas and testing if that new society is willing to stand up against the old. Why do I go back to 1850s while thinking of independence and 21st century? My reason is as follows. See, 1850s, two tremendous things happen in India. One is the feudal control, feudal rajas ruling India lost control on land, property, and the Sena, the armies, which they had shared with the East India Company till then. See, when we say British came and ruled India, it is the British did not rule India continuously as British. The first part of the rule was by a corporate, the first corporate company in the world, the East India Company, set up at a capital of 6 pounds and 4 pennies or shillings in 1600. It ruled India till 1857. And in 1857, it is the crown, that is the British king or the queen, that started ruling us. When the East India Company was there, the Indian kings, princes, they had a certain sanctity in the order of control, in the architecture of authority. After 1857, that architecture changed altogether. And for the first time, India took a step forward in becoming a state. I'm not talking of independent state, independent nation, but the state in relation to the people having a certain contract. In Rousseau style, call it social contract, or in some other political philosophy, call it a different kind of contract. An agreement that the state will protect the citizens. और उसीलिए हमारे देश में उस समय के लोग माए बाप सरकार ऐसा इस्तेमाल कर, माए बाप सरकार, ब्रिटिश सरकार क्या थी? माए बाप सरकार. माए बाप सरकार is a very expressive term. It is actually expressing that the state has arrived, not the kings. Mai Bap Sarkar was not used in relation to, let's say, Akbar or Shivaji, or this was a different kind of Europe. I don't say it's European idea of the state. It was a new idea of the state emerging in the context of, let's say, the industrialization of societies all over. India was not a big exception to that. India also had its role to play in that. So India changed the political order in 1857. In 1857, a resistance emerged. It was armed resistance. There were some princes trying to fight the British, hoping that they would probably overthrow the British and bring back the earlier kind of rule. It was in part sporadic, in part semi-organized. It was a movement. It was a strong movement. I do not want to minimize the importance of that movement. But in that, there was some idea of freedom, autonomy, independence. Don't interfere with our affairs. We will manage our affairs. That was the message that people who died in that struggle, 1857 uprising. These are two big things. The state is being formed and resistance to state has started in the same year. Not same year. The state is formed the next year. The crown took over the very next year, but about the same time from our perspective. But just about that time, a third idea took place, emerged in India, and that idea is what I described earlier, Relubin Narayan and Savitri Phule. My Republic of 1950 is founded on all these three ideas. Is the idea of the state. The Republic, of course, acquired the authority of the state. The Constitution proposes a state, proposes various authorities which will be in place, various institutions that will support the Constitution. But the Constitution also promised to all of us one absolutely non-negotiable thing, and that is India, that is Bharat, is a union of states. Nowhere the Constitution has said India is a nation. Show me the word use nation in the Constitution. It is a union. It is because we come together, and towards the end of, if you imagine the Constitution as a nice garden, lawns, you walking through it or walking on it, walking along it, you'll notice in the initial part there's a lot about India, its name. I'll come to that very soon. Its name, who we are, all that. What individual can claim from that. As it progresses, it moves to not the center, not about who will be the president, how the president will be there, how the prime minister will, but it moves to what are the rights of the states. India without the states does not exist. For instance, you take names of those 29 or 30 states out of India. What is India? But I also ask a counter question here. Over and above the states, there is something called India, and that is the idea of India. It is not space, it is not territory, it is not any property, it's not GST collection. Actually, this GST collection depriving the states of their apportioned lot is an idea directly flying in the face of idea of India. It is a great insult to India. Think of this. Think of this. In the idea of India, the Constitution allows federalism, union of states, rights of states, rights of individual, and then obligations in relation to the states as well as the nation. The nation is a distant entity in our architecture of idea of India. The Republic is at the heart of that idea. I was saying that from 1850s, when in Europe the second wave of revolution started, not the first French Revolution, but in 1852, after the fall of a second Napoleon, third Napoleon, small and big revolutions begin. And in fact, the context in Europe, creating ideas of great ideas of liberty, ultimate freedom or equality and justice, as in Karl Marx. It is at the same time that in India, this new idea of India was emerging. And what follows over the next 80, 90 years, up to 1947 or 1950, when India became the Republic, we, the people of India, accepted, adopted, gave to ourselves. Who gave the Constitution of India to us? We, the people, give it to ourselves. And who accepted? We accepted it. We are the sanctifier. We are the priests presiding over the coronation of India. Because we are coronated, all of us collectively, we, the people of India. Historically, it is the same time as in Europe, as here, when new ideas were coming up. and the color of those ideas was the color of blood and sweat. That color of the idea or ideas gets a very proper expression in our constitution and the way we have constituted ourselves. You see, the English word to constitute is to form ourselves. The constitution is not a name of a document. It is the architecture, the design of how we have brought ourselves together. In that design, among the most central ideas, central concepts, among the most central arrangements is the arrangement of diversity. You knock diversity out of, like, you know, say, I love laddus quite a lot. You knock sugar out of laddu, what will be? Or anybody from Bengal? Bangla? I just, adore Sandesh. But take sugar out of Sandesh. What remains is unpalatable, complete. What remains is, in simple words, rubbish. Diversity in the way India is constituted is like what blood is to the body, or what sugar is to Sandesh. As simple as that. Why am I saying it is so central to the Indian idea of our constituting ourselves? Once again, I'll go back to let's say European history. There is throughout the 19th century, nations, the idea of nation was arising in Europe. After Napoleon Bonaparte's fall in 1815, I mean, he seized power after the French Revolution in 1890. French Revolution took place after 3-4 years. Napoleon, kind of, because he was charismatic, and so he seized power. He misused, he abused it. He let people down, he let ideas down, and in 1815 his regime came to a tragic end. Every dictator ends tragically. There is no happy ending to a dictator's life. From that time, the idea of nationalism was emerging in Europe. First, it hit Italy. And in 1820s itself, in Italy, this nationalistic spirit started. It was two kinds of nationalism. One was feudal nationalism. The other was class nationalism in Italy. And among one of the heroes of Italian nationalist movement, Joseph Mazzini, who is a great favorite of the RSS. Savarkar wrote, translated Life of Joseph Mazzini, or wrote Life of. The other was Germany, where nationalism emerged. That was in the 1840s, resulting into a formation of Germany in 1860s. Please think of this. In Europe, these are small nations, small states. The idea of nation is arising. At the same time, the essential idea of French Revolution, which was liberty. What were the communes, French communes, asking for? Liberation, liberty, that is freedom, equality, justice. That idea of liberty resurfaces in Europe in the revolutions of 1840s. But if you look at the independence struggle of Ireland, Ireland was not asking for nationhood. It was asking for independence, freedom. If you look at the American idea of liberty, it's not asking for nationality, nation, it's asking for freedom. Consider these two ideas: to become a nation and to be free. These were parallel ideas, and these were ideas conflicting with each other, because nation is the ultimate enemy of freedom. Give me some time to explain what I'm saying, and don't report it to media immediately, because think of the Second World War. Which are the countries that got distinguished for fascism? Italy and Germany. Countries that went for extreme nationalism, heightened nationalism, got gravitated towards fascism. Countries which valued the idea of freedom had to come together. They range. I mean, at one end of that is USSR, at another end of it is USA, England, France, Ireland, and the colonies of this. They all had to fight fascism, not for a piece of land, but the idea of nationalism, hyper nationalism, excessive nationalism based on a false pride was becoming like, allow me to use a mythical reference, a Bhasmasur. And it was destroying its own people and also destroying people of other places. Auschwitz, people were put in gas chambers. Nationalism took Europe to an extreme violent position from which only liberty, idea of liberty, could rescue. Now, this is one version of reading European history. There are many other ways of reading European history. This is not the only history. I'm placing these ideas before you for you to consider what is the foundation of the way we have constituted ourselves. What are the ideas at the base of our constitution, the way we diversity. Now, in our constitution, in the Italian and German, the way Italy and Germany constituted themselves, they said they are a linguistic nation, pan-Germanic nation, German-speaking fatherland, in the figure of a man, no femininity. Same with Italy. Actually, Sicily had its own dialect. The Sicilian dialect was thrown out. Italy had several other smaller dialects that the mighty Roman Empire, which fell on its face in history, used to call barbaric languages. Italy accepted none of those languages, denied the existence of those languages. And later, those languages started resistance in making life in Italy perpetually unsteady till this day. In India, we accepted existence of many languages. Did India become a nation? Yes, of course we became a nation. We became a republic. The republic provided a platform for a nation. Yes, we are a nation. But is our nation a monolingual nation? Absolutely not. I'll tell you the story. It is quite interesting. And I can establish the factual evidence for the story in this room itself in a little while. Give me a few minutes. In Ireland, Thomas Parnell started the idea of free Ireland. That idea had its ups and downs. It was turned down in the British Parliament twice. It finally got accepted in the parliament in 1916, after a bloodbath given to the young generation there, on which W.B. Yeats has written a beautiful poem. Things change, everything change, utterly change. A terrible beauty is born. Terrible beauty was the young people who had. There's a famous poem by Yeats, Easter Rising. On the Easter day, that you remember this Agnivir, what is that? And suddenly, young people had something like that was happening in Ireland. Anyway, at that time, that idea was brought to India. Home Rule League, Sinn Féin. That idea was not. It did not find much acceptance here. But what is home rule? Home rule is Apna Raj. What Gandhi had called in 1909 Hind Swaraj. He was not saying Hind Desh. Gandhi's Gujarati was reasonably good. He could have said his title of the book Hind Desh. He's saying Swaraj, independence. Not to push it in the direction of hyper-nationalism was a caution that you observed. Whether we like Gandhi or not is another thing. I like him immensely because of this caution. Ambedkar never pushed India in the direction of nation, but justice. Justice. I'm saying that this Home Rule League, Annie Besant was responsible for bringing the idea to India. She persuaded Tilak to set up, and then Tilak started Home Rule League movement here, then dropped the idea for a while. Annie Besant, in her conversations with leaders of freedom movement, and look at this, हम आजादी का आंदोलन कहते हैं, फ्रीडम मूवमेंट कहते हैं, हम देशत्व का देश का आंदोलन ऐसा, राष्ट्र का आंदोलन ऐसा कभी हमने कहा तो नहीं है. हमने एक ही गलती की, गांधी को फिर बाद में राष्ट्र, एक्चुअली आजादी का पिता बताए तो अच्छा होता, राष्ट्रपिता बताया हमने. एंड नाउ ऑन 15th August is our independence. On 5th August, someday somebody might become Hindu Rashtrapita next year also. Because every year on 5th August something happens. Kashmir gets divided, this triple talaq comes, Ram Mandir gets established. I go back to, in my disjointed way to 1919. Annie Besant, in her conversations with Indian leaders, said, look, the idea of freedom in India should not scare you as idea of chaos. Mark her words. The idea of freedom should not scare you as a mark of, as indication of chaos, because in your chaos is your personality. She brought a resolution before a Congress meeting asking for free India to be multilingual. But Annie Besant was not acceptable to all the Congress people at that time. Therefore, her idea was turned down. 10 years later, it was Motilal Nehru who proposed a resolution saying that when India becomes free, it will become free only as a multilingual nation. 20 years later, that is 1946, when the Constituent Assembly met and thinkers in the country started, discussing how to constitute us. From 46 to November 49, in all discussions of the Constituent Assembly, every meeting of the Constituent Assembly had the topic of language difference and diversity. except one meeting, except in one meeting, the first meeting, which was to welcome the members, did not bring up the language issue. In all other meetings, invariably, this elaborate discussion on languages in the country. The northeastern people said, how can you take Hindi as the language? Similarly, the Tamil said, if you are taking Hindi as the language of nation, take Tamil as the language of nation. And somebody else said, but why only modern languages? Why don't you take Sanskrit also, which is a dead language? Sanskrit died long time back. But take it because so many languages are founded on that. These discussions are very important, the Constituent Assembly discussions, for us to know how we are made who we are. You see, every discussion in the Constituent Assembly which arrived at a conclusion, a discussion, a debate that got concluded, became article in the Constitution. And the discussions which remained unconcluded, inconclusive, became schedules of the Constitution. Ours is a unique Constitution. It has got articles. Look at Constitution of Argentina, for instance, or the 1948 Constitution of China. It has articles, but appendix, schedule, and schedule is not an appendix. Schedule is not a footnote. Schedule is not a list of references. Schedule is a different order of decision, different kind of decision. A schedule is an open debate. The country decides to keep this debate open, or the Constitution wants to tell the country that this debate should not be concluded in one way or the other way. It must be perennially be open question. That's the beauty of the Constitution. The Constitution gave us the 8th schedule, which is the schedule of languages. At that time, it had list of 14 names. Assamese, Bangla, Tamil, Kannada, Sindhi, Urdu, 14 names. Then some more names were added. Today it has got 22 names, 22 languages. Nowhere the Constitution said that any one of these will be the national language. India does not have a national language. India has multilingualism as the heart of its republic. There is administrative language. All languages could be languages of administration. It was also said that in 15 years' time, Hindi will replace English. 15 years later, once again it was said in another 10 years' time, Hindi will replace English. 10 years later, once again it was said that Hindi is slightly upgraded, but English will also remain there. So in saying that, replacing English was dropped. Hindi was not upgraded, English was upgraded actually. What was to be sacked was reinstated. Many languages. And how many languages? The 8th schedule has 22 languages now. How many languages does India have? If this question was asked in the year 1928, the answer would be 189 languages and 544 dialects, that is language varieties. This answer was provided by an Irishman. His name was George Abraham Grierson, G.A. Grierson. He had produced the first ever linguistic survey of India in 11 volumes and 19 parts, 19 books divided into 11 sections, 11 volumes. His count was 189 languages and 544 dialects. So Grierson took 30 years to do this work. He started the work in 1896 and completed it in 1928, 32 years. So actually, when Annie Besant was thinking of multilingualism, or Motilal Nehru was thinking of multilingualism, or when Gandhi was learning to sign in 12 or 13 languages, Grierson was also saying that India has such language diversity. And these ideas got into the constitution in the form of schedule of languages. But after independence, the map of India changed. Grierson survey touches upon some parts of Burma. It leaves out some parts of the Nizam state, that is where we are. Some Dravidian languages escaped his attention. In Himalayan languages, he had confusion about what is Pahadi. Why is somebody from Himachal Pradesh or Uttarakhand here? What is Kumaoni? What is Gadwali? He had problems, but admirable work. So after independence, how many languages does India have? If that question were, I said in 1928, if somebody had asked the question, the answer was clear, Grierson's survey. After independence, the answer was not clear. So in 1961, Census of India did a wonderfully well-documented list of mother tongues. And that list had 1,652 names. Language names, 1,652 names of mother tongues, given by who? People of India, because census door-to-door count is there, head count is there. So people had said these are the names of our mother tongues. They were not manufactured. They were stated by the people. So these people of India are factually, as in evidence, are multilingual people with many languages. And that 1,652 mother tongues existed in 1961 shows that Indians had allowed these languages to survive. They had not killed them. I had not killed my neighbor's language. If languages came from outside, I'll give you examples. I mean, you know that English has come to us from England. Fine. But some of us know that Karen language has come from Myanmar to India. It is spoken both in the Andamans as well as in Mizoram. And we accepted it as our language with open arms. We're not thrown it out. We did not say it belongs to Burma, let it go to Burma. It is ours today. Persian, Turkish, Arabic, Lepcha language, which is not born in India, but now resides in North Bengal and in Sikkim as a native language. To the extent, I mean, we welcome languages from all over the world. We actually welcome the Sanskrit language which came to us from outside. You know, the Vedic Sanskrit, the first Vedas, Rig Veda, which got composed around 1400 before Christ. 1400 years before Christ. That's the date of composition of Rig Veda. It has words originating in the Armenic. Armenia is name of a nation. From there, that language comes to us. We receive it and we embed in it forms of worship, forms of admiration for nature. Mitra. Mitra means Surya. You know this word, Mitra. Mitra means Surya, the sun. That word is Armenic word which we accepted. Agni, fire, which we light inside our house for cooking our daily bread. A word has come from outside India, we accepted it. To the extent, names, Shah, it's a Persian word, it has come from Iran, we accepted it. We don't say that if you have this name, you cannot be a constitutional authority in the country because your name is Persian. We are a multilingual nation. We accepted. We accepted language coming from all over the world, languages coming from all over the world. Therefore, 1652 mother tongues was not an exaggeration. There has been decline in the number of languages, which is sad. It has other reasons. But in the last census, 2011, the number of mother tongues listed was 1369. That is, in the last 60 years, we managed to lose 300 languages, 1369 mother tongues. Unfortunately, 2021 census did not take place and shall not take place because this government has decided to make data disappear. If there is no data, you cannot compare poverty lines, you cannot compare number of languages, you cannot compare diversity range and so on. Please tell me when. Because I'm not looking at any watch. If we have this diversity of languages, I did a linguistic survey of India several years, and I found 850 living languages. That is, I actually saw them. As a doctor sees patients, I actually heard those languages. I heard stories. I spoke to those people. I don't understand their languages, but I understand that it is a language. So a doctor is not a patient, but a doctor understands a patient is a patient. We are rich culturally and also economically because of this kind of diversity. We are rich in our knowledge traditions because of this diversity. And I will now come to this knowledge tradition and cultural richness. But so far, I was trying to say to you that the leaders who led our struggles and people who gave their lives in sacrifice for the idea of freedom fully understood. So also those who constituted us as India, that is the Union of States, fully understood that diversity is at the heart of the idea of India. If there is no diversity, there is no India. It can be a Pakistan, it can be a Myanmar, it will not be an India. India, to be India, that is Bharat, which is the Union of States, diversity is non-negotiable precondition. Just as in life insurance policy, somebody having life is a non-negotiable. If there is, can you do life insurance of this water bottle? Of course, some other companies are very happy to do so. You won't, because you say it does not have life. Of course, somebody might spread on WhatsApp that this also has life. but these people, anti-national people, don't understand what it is. It's their fault. It is non-negotiable precondition for India is diversity. And therefore, the structure of our authorities is in the nature of a federalism. Please, there's a logical connect, and these two cannot be separated at all. The way we have been multilingual and also multicultural, because a language is not just a sequence of words. A language is a worldview. What you can say in one language, you cannot say in an identical way in another language. In Gujarati, if I say "Kem cho," "Saru che," we actually change the grammar, or we say "Majama." I am in the middle of fun. That's the English translation. I'm happy. I'm well. You cannot say it in English. The worst you can do in English is, well, you can kind of, a language constructs the space and the time that we see with our eyes as we are enveloped by that language. And therefore, a language, the word makes the world. Not only as poets say, this is philosophically, scientifically so. I'll give you some more to chew, to bite. If a language has only single structure of the past tense, its idea of history is linear. If a language has 5 ways of formulating the past tense, its idea of history will be different. मैं गया था, ये तो मैं गई थी, और मैं जा रहा था, मैं जा रही थी. So these are 2 different ways of tackling the past. Therefore, you can sense the past. But if there is a language which says, well, I went, full stop. I'm not talking of the English language, but time, humans perceive time. Time does not exist, friends. Objectively speaking, time has no existence. We have imagined it. We imagined it because we are earthbound, because the earth revolves around, and that circle gets completed. We have broken that into 24 units, called 24 hours. We count those units every time action happens, every movement happens. Step outside the earth. Try and stand between Jupiter and the earth for a few minutes. For a while. And you will find that the sense of time for the Jupiter and the sense of time for the earth are so completely different that there is no time. There, space becomes time, or time becomes space. And that's why when I'm talking about a very distant star, I say it is so many light years away. It's a measure of time as well as space. Year is, I know my school teacher has said, in a year, if time will travel so many kilometers, etc. But that's, the teacher had no option but to explain that. He was oversimplifying. Time and space. So we imagine time. Time does not exist. It is in the mind. The time that is in the mind is structured, it's conditioned, it's framed by the language that is available to you. The way you frame time in one language, you cannot frame it in another language. There's a subtle or a substantial difference between the two. Therefore, I am saying that the world, every language is a unique worldview. And our being multilingual gives us the benefit of having many worldviews come together. I said this diversity is not chaos. It is capital. It is a wealth. Because we have many wisdoms available, many views available. We might be argumentative Indians, never agreeing on anything. But that ability not to agree on anything is in the end something which will benefit us. Linguistic diversity and federalism are the way we are structured in this country. As against this structure, there is another idea being proposed. And that idea is not founded on the notion of diversity, but on the notion of a past, an imagined past. And I would like to say something about that imagined past, how that architecture of ideas works, and how that architecture of ideas is in direct clash with the constitution that has made us Indians. I'll just take 1 minute break and I'll get into this other thing that I want to say. But before I take the break, I would like to conclude this part of what I was saying. Please don't be so optimistic when I say I would like to conclude. I'm not finally concluding. Because I don't want to raise your hopes and then dash them. Because I know when the issue came out, I thought the price would be 900, but it was 300. Or something like that.
Yeah.
Something like 850 to 300. I won't do that. I don't have that ability. I am only Ganesh Devi and not. I'm from Gujarat. I'm born in 1950. I am also beginning to grow some, but I cannot put out hopes and dash them down. I don't have that kimaya, my jadoo nahi hai mere. I cannot create Brahm. I can only create friendship and understanding. So, but I am not stopping. Don't clap. Don't clap. I'm just taking a break in order to repeat what I said. I said the idea of India emerged in the freedom struggle. The freedom struggle was not just a few years or 4 decades before 1947. It started much earlier. And in that idea of India was not just the idea of nation and resistance to colonial rule, but something about the society, about access, women and Dalits, women and poor people, access to things. And that the makers of our constitution understood. And in order to provide that access, they created this wonderful architecture, which is not of nation, but of a republic. And at the heart of the republic is the arrangement of a federal structure, which allows multiplicity of cultures and multiplicity of languages. That is done deliberately so that we have the benefit of many world views in conducting our affairs. So this is one architecture. I'll take just 1 minute stop and then come to another architecture, alternate architecture of ideas that is in and around us today. 1 minute, पानी पीना है?
Glass में.
अच्छा, हाँ, thank you.
Chai.
You want me to stop?
No.
No, politeness has, but you have to tell me when I have to stop. I will be quite happy to stop you.
You can comfortably take 30 to 40 minutes.
Great, that suits me. So here I am. After, after this brief break, because we're so used to television, if there is no break, no. If there is no break, the news is not real. So here I bring this, the breaking news. This part 2, or as they say, the 9 big news at 9 o'clock, 8 big news. So, second, when did India get populated? The constitution is saying we the people of India. The people, from where do they come? Did they get airdropped? Of course, we know in the process of evolution, people moved from being apes, monkeys, to homonyms, that is humans. This much we know. But from where have we come? Did all the monkeys in India become all human beings? Then why the monkeys are left still there? The story is, in very brief, I go back to the Big Bang, the cosmos gets created. That is 1400 years, 1400 crore years ago, the Big Bang takes place. Our planetary system is about 650 crores of years ago, or 600 crores, roughly 400 crores of years ago. The Earth acquires its shape, anda-like, egg-like shape. About 250 crores of years ago, simple life emerges out of inorganic material. Life emerges. Those cells compound, and then other animals and humans. The humans come in the picture roughly, more actively, roughly about 20 lakh years ago. 2 million years. 2 million years ago, the humans that were there were not us. There were more intelligent species, human species. They were taller human species, but we survived. One was called Homo erectus. Another was called Neanderthal. We survived for whatever reason. I know the reason, but I won't share it with you just now. They had a greater brain power, possibly they had greater strength also, but we acquired language. Language brings us together. It helps us as a signaling system. Thank you. This language knowing human being that we call the Homo sapien, that is an animal having a spine, Majaraju. As anybody from Gujarat? Came to. So Karodraju કહે છે ગુજરાતમાં. So the spinal animal, the spined animal, 70,000 years ago, it starts moving out. The numbers were very small. Those people who moved out of Africa are our original ancestors. And I tell you, for all of us, they are the same ancestors. I mean, your name may be whatever, but if you were to trace all your genes back, they go there. This does not mean that they, by the way, I'm not saying they were Hindus, because they were there very, very long time back, before the river Sindhu was called Sindhu. And in the Persian language, it was pronounced as Hindu. Or Arabic language, it was pronounced. That's much long time back. 70,000 years back, they started out. The first move out of Africa sent a wave of humans after the Holocene. Holocene is a point in time, historical time. This is very interesting. We sometimes go to Shimla for our summer holidays. People in Shimla try to go to a hill station now because it's very warm. For several thousand years, of those 70,000 years, the earth climate was extremely cold. In between, there were periods where the climate was warmer. So these times when the climate became cold is known as interglacials. That is almost ice creating kind of periods. The last such ice creating period, climatic period, existed from the year 19,000 before Christ till about 9,500 years before Christ, almost for 10,000 years. 10,000 years cold. I mean, your insurance rates would be very high at that time. Premium. So cold, freezing cold, life could not grow. As a result, a lot of the earth was covered by snow. But 9,500 years before Christ, that's roughly 12,000 is 11,500. So I'll call it 12,000. 12,000 years before our time, the climate started warming up. And because of that warm up, the snow melting on two sides of the equator, halfway mark on the earth, south and north of it, snow melting allowed grass to grow, sparrows to grow. Because the sparrows or birds are there, animals to grow. Because animals are there, then hunters to grow. So the entire cycle. And in that cycle, humans out of Africa who had moved previously close to equator also started making some new movement. One of those movements, 12,000 years back, was increase in hunting gathering. Even today, the people were nomadic in habit. आज भी हिंदुस्तान में यात्रा पे कोई निकलता है, रथ पे हो या पैर पे हो, लोग बड़ा उसका आदर करते हैं. Now राहुल गांधी जी गोइंग देयर पैर पे, होपिंग के केरला से लेके increase in everybody does it. Because Indians have walked in the past. We are primarily a walking people. And therefore, sometimes it becomes difficult to shape ourselves as working people. का सांप सीट में नहीं है, walking. So, hunter gatherers, slowly from Iran came agriculture to us. That was about 9,000 years before our time. Some agriculture also came from East Asia, but that came later. Agriculture produced surplus. Surplus produced capital. Labor saving tactics started. First labor saving tactic in the world is creation of a script for calculations. Number marks are made. Itna paisa diya, itna interest rate, compound interest rate, all that. This is what people call civilization or culture. It started growing. This is the story of last 12,000 years. In those 12,000 years, in India, there was already a migration wave to the south and the west, northwest of India, 45,000 years before our time. There was another wave of migration 9,000 years before our time. Both these produce a population which had created what is known as the Harappan Civilization or Indus Civilization. That civilization declined because of a very long drought of 200 years. Indus, Sindhu Sanskriti, it came to a climax 2400 years before Christ to 1900 years before Christ. For about 500-600 years. इस यीशु के पहले 2500 से लेके 2400 या 2500 से लेके 1900 तक 500-600 साल. This is Indus civilization. Then there is a big gap क्योंकि there was a long drought and this drought was not falling of rains. The drought was of a different kind. It was variation of temperatures, night temperatures and day temperatures were very large. And that creates what we call the desertification. Rocks break because of, suddenly if Hyderabad temperatures drop during night and increase during day too much, the rock around Hyderabad will become sand and will become like Rajasthan. The Harappan civilization was a victim of that, and it proved to be the first unsustainable urbanization. Now we are in the second unsustainable urbanization phase in India. 500 years after the Sindhu civilization had gone down, and all the wonderful cities Harappan people had built became deserted and destroyed, 500 years later, another language came here. With that language came people who could control horses. Not just control horses. Horses were not here. They were in the northern steppes. That is, if you look at the map of India, countries north of India, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, then further east, Mongolia also. It is somewhere there that horse rearing and horse breeding started. Horse with a wheel car becomes an excellent vehicle, but a horse with a wheeled car and a metallic weapon, that is arrow, becomes a deadly army. Because from the running cart, you can throw an arrow, you can easily dispel the enemy much faster than enemy can. That technological advantage helped those people come here. And they did not come here directly, like I came from Pune to Hyderabad, I landed here, not like that. They came via Iran, because they went left, they went westward first, then came south, and then came through Afghanistan. In that process, a language group spread. That language group was named much later. I mean, I am talking of the story of the second millennium before Christ. The naming of the language happened 2000 years later in the 18th century. After 4,000 years of this language, nearly 3,500 years after this language. This language was called Indo-Aryan language. The Indo-Aryan is not a language spoken by people called Arya. ये बहुत समझना आपके लिए जरूरी है कि आर्य ये कोई लोगों का नाम नहीं था. Please understand this, and I will explain why it is not so. शायद आपकी भाषा में अरे क्या चीज है ऐसा कभी सुना होगा आपने. इन मराठी ऑल्सो आई हर्ड पीपल सेइंग अरे काय करतोयस, अरे तुला अक्कल आहे की नाही. इज दिस समबडी मराठी? अरे हाँ is called in grammar an intimate personal pronoun. Every language has this intimate personal pronoun. This is a Dravidic personal pronoun which has gone all the way to Iran. And this word Ariya, A-R-I-A, A-I-R-I-A, or something, some such spelling, is used in ancient Iranian as a personal pronoun. Are saab, kya bataye? That are refers to what? It is actually, it refers to me as well as you. It is a personal pronoun like I, you. इसका इंग्लिश में मैं एग्जांपल देता हूँ. इफ आई यूज अ सेंटेंस लाइक one does not know if the new budget will have higher taxation or lower taxation. So one does not know. What does the word one mean? It does not mean कि एक number. One means I don't know or you do not know. I or you. It is called intimate personal pronoun. Are was an intimate personal pronoun in ancient Iranian. It was so therefore in Sanskrit also. And therefore the Sanskrit speaker would have said, Bho Arya. Means, hey gentleman, hey sir, just as you say, sir, kahan jana hai? Rickshaw wala will ask you, sir, Arya is like Sarya. Is the same. There is no people call. If somebody tells you, now, when we write letters, such as 500 years from now, a researcher comes and does a detailed analytical study of correspondence of the LIC. And all the LIC letters are saying, Shri so and so, Shri so and so, Shri so and so. And they say, oh, these were people called Shri. Because Shri is a shrinking of Shriyut. Shri is a shrinking of Shriyut. Shriyut is the real word, is short form of Shri is Shriyut. Shriyut has a meaning, and that is Shriyut literally meant an ironic word, as God's funny creation, Shriyut. It acquired respect later on in history, and so each one of you have become Shri or Shrimati. Shri, with in order to distinguish women from Shriyut, Shrimati is written in detail, Shri is written in short. Anyway, I'm taking too much of time on that example, but I'm saying there were no Aryan people. Arya was a word referred to by George, by a 18th century linguist who created the Asiatic Society in Calcutta. And William Jones was his name. William Jones, while talking about the common languages, Latin, Greek, Iranian, ancient Iranian, Sanskrit-based languages, said these are all languages where the word Arya seems to be used. And therefore he called them Indo-Aryan languages or Indo-European languages, Indo-Iranian languages, and so on. I wanted to tell you this alternate other architecture of ideas. This architecture of ideas is saying that Sanskrit did not come here. It went from here to there because the term Arya exists in ancient Iranian. It is like saying English did not come to India from England, it went from India to England because the word Mr. is used in England. Think of that logic. This other architecture says that Sanskrit went from here to there. No people came from outside to India. People went from India to outside. Despite the genetic evidence, that argument is saying that those Aryas, Aryan people who went there, were so sophisticated and advanced that they had all the scientific ideas at their command, and they civilized the rest of the world. Because such were our ancestors, this is what the other idea is saying. We must be proud of ourselves as a nation. And if you do not have that pride, the state machinery must be used to inculcate that pride. And if you oppose that sense of pride, then you are obviously a traitor, enemy of the nation, enemy of the Aryas, enemy of Sanskrit. Now, obviously, the Tamil speakers who oppose Hindi language, imposition of Hindi, are seen as traitors. But that apart, I'm not talking of those issues. I'm talking of the architecture of ideas. I should like to explain how and from where this has come. We think that this is based on the ideas of Hedgewar or Savarkar or Mohan Bhagwat. No, there is another source, and it is very interesting to know what that source is. Can I disclose? This is a public disclosure. Something, sir. So disclosure is always very fascinating. So, okay. You see, in the year 1784, I'm not talking of 1856. I'm going a century before that. 1784, a small group was created by a young man. This man had arrived from England to work in the British administration as a judge. Probably he was 27, 28 years old. His name was William Jones. He was very much interested in the question of language. So back home, he had studied Latin and Greek. And after coming here, he sought permission of the office in Calcutta to go to Banaras for 1 year and study Persian language. And his Persian teacher also taught him Sanskrit, because people used to know both Persian and Sanskrit in those days. Scholars used to know Persian as well as Sanskrit. So William Jones understood a little bit of Sanskrit, a little bit of Persian, a little bit of Latin, a little bit of Greek, and quite a lot of English. And he noticed some similarities in these languages. 3 years later, in the group that he had created, he made a simple statement. He read out that statement. That statement is about a page and a paragraph. Page and a half. No, this is my lecture. I was supposed to read it out to you. But after looking at you, I lost, I got so excited about this incident. I am talking. Next year, I will read this lecture to you, but just now. William Jones, in that statement, said that these ancient languages appear to be related. And if they are related, is it not possible that they have perhaps emerged out of a common source? That there may be a mother, a common mother. When you go to another town and see 5 or 6 young men looking identical, obviously you say, oh, there must be a common mother or common father. Common mother. He named that common mother. He called it, because which were these languages? Some were from Europe, some were from India. Persian and Sanskrit he found in India. Latin and Greek were in Europe. So he called the common mother as Indo-European mother. The technical term for that in linguistics is proto. Proto means that which does not exist, but we can trace it back. We can imagine it in existence. We can imagine its existence. That is proto. That is the technical term in linguistics. So Sir William Jones, now recognized as Sir William Jones, the young man, in a 1.5-page statement, made a light-hearted comment, a serious comment in an evening meeting in Calcutta, that there appears to be a Proto-Indo-European language. This was in 1787. 1787 till about 1860, linguists all over the world spent their energy in comparing the words in these languages. And they found out that if you have mata in Sanskrit, then there is mater in some other language, and some other pita, there is peter, and so on. So these are the similarities. People started drawing similarities. This exercise is called historical linguistics. So for 8 decades, historical linguistics developed. In 1860s, that is nearly 80 years after William Jones, a French linguist brought in one more proposition. And that proposition was the Indo-European languages, which later the comparative linguistics, historical linguistics found has 3 branches: Indo-European, Indo-Aryan, and Indo-Iranian. The French linguist said that the Indo-Aryan is language of the Aryas, that is people. Were there such people? The answer is no, there were no such people. But the French linguists proposed that there were such people, and that those people at one long time back in history lived in Nordic Europe, Northern Europe, somewhere, in the iced part of Europe, Iceland, or Norway, or Sweden. And from there they descended. There was one German philosopher, French linguist, German philosopher. The German philosopher said the Nordic Aryans were very pure. They brought civilization to Europe. But as they went out of Europe, further down in the south, they became impure. They got polluted because they married other people. And the hybrid created decline in civilization. This is the philosophy brand of 1890s. 20 years later, a young fellow who had tried to join the army and got wounded in his groins, causing a serious sexual deformity to him, took up this philosophy and said that if we can purify the blood of the Aryans again, we can become masters of the world. The name of this young soldier was Adolf Hitler. You know what happened? Hitler brought in legislation. Do you know? He came to power in 1933, May. November that year, he brought in a series of legislations, laws, called racial purity laws. There's a German word for it. I'm giving the English. Racial purity laws. On the basis of those laws, special jails were created. And in a few years' time, from 1937 onward, they became the gas chambers, where gypsies, communists, Jews, and Polish people were killed by dutiful, duty-minded, honest officers. Were those officers terrible people? No, they were doing their duty. I went to see a gas chamber near, a concentration camp near Berlin. And I noticed, it was like a large ground with a wall surrounding compound. And outside the compound, there's a road, like ring roads. On the other side of the road, there are houses. And I heard there that the officers who were performing the duty in the concentration camp could, after having killed a few hundred people in the gas chamber, go back to their homes in the evening to celebrate the birthdays of their innocent children and cut birthday cakes. So honest and such good officers they were, just as we have today institutions in Delhi. The EDs, the CBIs. The philosophy of racial purity was at the heart of Hitler's fascism. The idea of racial purity had come from a flawed linguistic hypothesis. The flawed linguistic hypothesis had remotely, accidentally linked with some linguistic development back in India because of William Jones. William Jones' hypothesis was not wrong. The French development of it 80 years later and a German philosophical icing on the cake 20 years later was flawed. They were flawed. I am mentioning these years deliberately. The philosopher in Germany who impacted Hitler also impacted Guruji Golwalkar. And indeed, in the discourse in India at that time was the talk of how the Aryans, pure-blooded Aryans, could be supported for fighting in Europe a war to preserve that purity. There are people here who wanted to support the Germans. There are people in India who were distributing photographs of Hitler. I seen a photograph of Hitler in my father's house. My father was a villager. He was not educated. He thought it's a nice photograph, free photograph. मुफ्त में मिला, खिली से लगा दिया, उसका टाई ऐसा मूछ, कोट बिट पे. हर घर में तिरंगा. एक समय हर घर में हिटलर लगा रहे थे. Now, question of this architecture of ideas. They refuse to acknowledge that people brought Sanskrit here. Where is the harm? People brought English here, people brought Persian, Karen, Lepcha. There are 120 languages that have come to India from outside. We accept it because we are multilingual. We accept it because we are a population mix all along in history. We never ask about whose blood is pure. अच्छा साहब, जाते जाते मैं ये भी मेंशन करना चाहता हूँ, अभी जा नहीं रहा हूँ लेकिन मेंशन करना चाहता हूँ. हिंदी में ऐसा बोला जाता है कि बाय द वे आई वुड लाइक टू ऐड, दैट्स व्हाट. इट डज नॉट मीन कि मैं आपको वे से खींच के बाय द वे ले जा रहा हूँ, बाय लेन में. in the crisis year 2022, the Ministry of Culture of central government released a grant to the Anthropological Survey of India for buying equipment for genetic tests, which, according to the scientist who is heading that project, was aimed at assessing the racial purity of people of India. How does it sound? Nice? See, supposing you and I are pure and all the others are impurers, they can be sent to gas chambers. अपना राज चलाएंगे. It's horrifying. 2022. You look at, the report appeared in New Indian Express. The very same day, Ministry of Culture gave a statement saying that no, we are not issuing any such grant, or not making any such grant. The statement came that this is a fake news. But if you look at the amounts that have gone to the ANSI, Anthropological Survey of India, you will notice that there are a few more eggs added to the amounts. Few more zeros are added there. Where will these tests be done, carried out? There's a list of 37 tribes. One among them is Nehalis in Maharashtra. Another is a tribe in Andaman. Third, anybody from Orissa, of course. Pahadiyas, Mal Pahadiyas, Orissa. Who is a Mal Pahadiya? Who is Jarwa? Who is Nehali in Maharashtra? Jarwa in Andaman? Who is? These are the settlers who were here when agriculture emerged in India 9,000 years ago. They were there prior to that date. That's known from the history of, from the earlier genetic testing carried out by various universities in the world. There is a Hyderabad base, Hyderabad, this very Hyderabad organizations, I think, Center for Cellular Microbiology, Molecular Biology, CCMB. CCMB had samples, blood samples, gene samples. They were analyzed by a very talented scientist from Harvard Medical School. His name is David Rick. Professor David Rick spent time with scientists in Hyderabad and did an extensive work on these samples and wrote a wonderful book called Who We Are and From Where We Have Come. That appeared in 2018. That actually shows when people migrated, from where they migrated, how are they linked or not linked genetically. The RSS countered that. And in order to refute the countering by the RSS, 100 scientists from all over the world issued a statement asking them not to go for this business of purity because all of us are mixed in lineage. In other words, we are constituted physically, in our blood culture, in our genes, as a mix. We are multiple. No Indian is pure Indian. To find any idea of purity in India is to, just as we try to bring Marx or Tolstoy or Lincoln or Rousseau in our discourse, it is to bring Hitler in our discourse, racial purity. 1920s was the time when the RSS had accepted the German ideas of racial purity. Dr. Ambedkar was aware of that. So were the Congress leaders, and therefore the Constituent Assembly deliberately decided to make multiculturalism, diversity, and federalism as the hearts of what is our idea of India. From 1857, I said, access to justice is the foundation. This multiculturalism and diversity and federalism are a logical extension, culmination of that struggle. The moment we deny diversity and federalism, we deny the existence of freedom struggle. The moment we get into false pride for who we were, with techniques of plastic surgery in the past. Actually, I'm growing beard because I have mole growing here and I want to conceal it. My name is Ganesha, but I dare not say that I can carry out plastic surgery for myself. Kya kare? We are a mix, and thank goodness we are a mix. Our life is a life of multiplicity, diversity, plurality. Multiplicity is a bad term. It, in the bad sense, means duplicity. But in a good sense, it means having many, bahulta, bahuta, vividta, sanklupta, complexity. See, E.M. Forster has a wonderful essay on the difference between the French and the British. There was an accident and the Frenchman started crying. The British did not cry. That is what E.M. Forster says. He started ordering people, you stand here, you go there, you tie a bandage. And after the accident was over, the British was crying and the French was writing history of the accident. So this is the French panic in calamity, the British panic after the calamities, or Indians neither panic or panic all the time unpredictably, because we have a very mixed inheritance. That we accept languages in such a large number is not because of some default or because we were enslaved by many kings many times. That's not so. In fact, we allowed those kingdoms to come up. We went and we paid taxes to them because we have tolerance of diversity. I'm not oversimplifying. That's not my intention. I'm saying it polemically in a way. We have tolerance for diversity because historically that's how our population is made. Our population stock is made of mixing. और ये मत समझिए कि वहां से मुस्लिम राजा आए, वो तलवार लेके आए थे, यहाँ सबका सर उड़ा के फिर यहाँ बहुत अत्याचार. That's cock and bull story. History does not bear that out. अब बताइए, उनके पास इतनी तलवारें थी, इतने घोड़े थे, इतनी चिलखत थी और इतनी सत्ता थी, इतने सैकड़ों साल, तो उनकी संख्या आपसे बहुत बड़ी होनी चाहिए थी, वो नहीं हुई थी. It's complete nonsense that medieval Islam subjugated India and exploited India in all possible ways is historically an exaggerated statement of a different order of society, because for West Asia, from Iran, I mean, from Syria, Turkey, Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, India, Sri Lanka, we had no ideas of what is a nation. आप में से कोई गाना गाते होगे, तेलुगु बोलने वाले हैं कोई यहाँ? त्यागराज जी गाना गाते थे, त्यागराज जी के संगीत में सा रे ग आता था ना, तो गंधार था. गंधार, ग stands for Gandhar. Gandhar means Afghanistan. It is the tonal culture of Afghanistan woven into Indian music. For us, what is Iran? What is Syria? Vedas bring words from Turkey and Syria. Tyagaraja's music has tonality coming from Afghanistan. We have no problem with that. I wrote a book on the Mahabharata, it seems, as was mentioned by my friend. The Mahabharata, actually the war that happens takes place outside India. But we consider that poem as our poem. No issue. Rabindranath Tagore was extremely brilliant when capturing the spirit of India. He said, if I had to write a national anthem, what will I? He could have listed heroes of history. He could have written names of mountains. Being brilliant, and that's why he got the Nobel Prize. Only in literature, he wrote names of language-speaking people. Punjab, Bengal, Dravid, Maratha, Sindhi, Sindhu kya hai na? Gujarat. He understood the spirit of India. That's why his song became the national anthem. It became part of one's heart. गर्दन उठती है गाना सुनते समय. कोई ऑफिशियल ऑर्डर की जरूरत नहीं उसके लिए, कोई डायरेक्टिव यानी ऑर्डिनेंस की जरूरत नहीं है, घर घर राष्ट्रगीत की जरूरत नहीं है. इट इज इन दिल दिल में है, बिकॉज इट डिस्क्राइब्स हु वी आर इन दी. इट डज नॉट डिस्क्राइब अस इन टर्म्स ऑफ आर्यन सबसे श्रेष्ठ, बाकी के सब द्रविडियन. फ्रेंड्स, I had decided to read out a systematically framed paper. But then I thought I will rather describe not just my ideas and place them before you, but also the temperature of those ideas. Every idea has a temperature and a texture. And because we are Saruday, same in the heart, I thought I'll share this with you. We're same in the heart, not because the shape of the heart is the same. I mean, that's saying nothing. We're Saruday, same in the heart, because we are all experiencing a similar kind of pain. And that pain is that something really well thought out is getting destroyed before our eyes, and we cannot do much. Therefore, I thought I should place before you the two architectures. One is Samvidhanik Bharat and the other is Sanghik Bharat. So the choice is Sangh or Samvidhan. Diversity or purity. Federalism or majoritarian, autocratic, totalitarian center. Whether we want, like Tagore's Mao had said, let thousand roses, let 1,000 flowers bloom, or we want only 320 ka sarkar. आप 320 के सरकार समझते हैं? नहीं, मैं आपको बताता हूं। 3 लोगों का, जैसे सुनिए आप, मैं आई एम टेलिंग यू ट्रूथ एज इट इज। एक डोवल, एक शाह, एक मोदी, 3। जिसका फायदा करना है उसके नाम है अंबानी, अडानी, और जिसका कुछ भी सुनना नहीं है उसकी संख्या है 0। पूरा दुनिया का सुनना नहीं, क्योंकि दे 0, 3, 2, 0, 320 की सरकार। "75th year of independence is an occasion for us really to feel proud of the memory of those who became martyrs. Is the moment for us to feel moved by the sacrifice they made so that our sisters and daughters get freedom that they deserve. And those castes which were prevented from access to knowledge, यहां तक कि उनकी छाया पड़े तो भी इम्प्यूरिटी आती है। उनकी छाया मेरे पे गिरे तो मुझे नहाना चाहिए, ठीक है, वो मैं करूं, और उनको पनिशमेंट देनी चाहिए, उसको फ्लॉगिंग करना चाहिए, लाइक यू फ्लॉग अ हॉर्स। मॉब लिंचिंग करना चाहिए उसको कास्टिगेट, आउटकेस्ट करना, उसको गांव से बाहर निकालना चाहिए। इसके नए नए तरीके ढूंढे इन दिनों में। जिनकी छाया हम पे पड़ी उनके घर पे बुलडोजर चले। सेम तरीका है सनातनी ब्राह्मणिकल ऑर्डर being imposed in the 75th year of independence. We have to think of independence as an idea, not nation as its possible alternative. This hyper-nationalism can be destructive of the idea of independence. We have to think of federation as the foundation and not this totalitarian stranglehold in the name of unity, in the falsehood of unity, because it is nobody's unity there, only unity of 3 to 0. 320 unity. These are two different architectures. You have to decide whether you want to be civilized and be on the side of independence and rights, on the side of justice and freedom, on the side of truth, historical truth, and linguistic diversity and cultural diversity and humanity, or you want to be on the side of WhatsApp universities which are brainwashing people, thinking that human mind is also an extension of artificial memory. Assert your humanity. Ask your people, your families to assert the humanity. Ask them not to be like pale copies of artificial memory. Ask them not to be members of that WhatsApp university. Ask them to be India, to be mixed, to be free, to be ready to make sacrifice, to sink differences. Unite so that we can remain diverse. Thank you.
As a comrade, it has been a fascinating presentation. Now we'll break for tea. Yeah, 20 minutes. So,
May I interrupt?
yeah, sure.
Which is extremely uncivilized to interrupt. I forgot one sentence. I said after so much of talk, about diversity, what comes in the end is tea. Diversity.
Okay, we'll adjourn for tea after that. So we have Assamese tea, Darjeeling tea, and I was kind of tea. Yeah, 1 o'clock we are coming back. And in the meantime, those who want to raise certain clarifications, please write down and give it to us.
Will the tea here or go out? And what is what